to tell you about the conference that I went to recently, the student I were blessed to go to. I want to thank you all as a congregation because you chipped in to help us pay the bills to get out there and back, and that was great. We were there for almost a week in Orlando before the hurricane hits. It's going to be hitting right now up that coast. So what I'll do during the time here is I'll show you some pictures and some of the aspects of it.
Sure,
Well,
yes.
I will.
Oh, yeah, I know what it is.
He knows what it is.
Yeah, I know what it is.
So it's the GCI International Conference, GCI Grace Community International, and we have one of these conferences every 3 years or so, and that's the schedule they hope to get on now. It's every 3 years. So the next conference, put it on your calendar, your 2020. Already got it planned or planning it, so that'll be the next one. Really, it was an amazing conference. It's probably the best one I've been to in many ways. It was educational. It was enlightening. Just some of the stuff that's been going on around the world. It was, there we go. It was like, it was celebratory. People were really upbeat and excited to be there. And the focus of it was very much on GCI, on our denomination, which may seem like an odd focus because you think, well, that's kind of inward turning, or that's what are we doing talking about just GCI? I mean, the Christian world is a lot bigger than GCI. Yeah, but it wasn't an international Christian world conference. It was an international GCI conference, and so it was good that I think that we focused on just who we are. Not that we're any better than any other denomination. You know, we're not trying to draw lines and say that we've got something they don't, but we are who we are. We are a denomination, and so we just looked at that fact. And it's been a number of years maybe since we just stopped and we said, where have we been? You know, what's kind of our background? What's kind of our history as a denomination? And I realize there's a few in the audience that don't go back a long time with us. Well, Lee does, but he was like this tall when he was coming to church back years ago, and now him and Mindy and family are back, and Doug and Sue, and so although your history may not go back as far in your memory, you're still part of that history line. Just it's still part of what GCI is made up of today and where we end up being. And so, you know, we're glad you're here today, and you're now part of the history that continues to roll on of our denomination. So it's all just part of a package, whether you've been around 40 years, whether you've been around 2 years, you know, it's still all part of the same package of history. So we just, at the conference, they looked back, and Dr. Tkach's first talk was kind of a looking back talk of where we've come from. And we've come, for those of you who go back, you know, we've come out of some beliefs that were not very healthy, and we've changed a lot of those things, and it wasn't an easy change. It happened now 25 years ago or so. It seems amazing that it was that long ago, but it did, and it was tough, and then people went through it, and families broke apart, and all kinds of radical changes took place, but I think it's made us a healthier church because we had to go back and re-look at everything. You know, we were wrong on so many things. We said, well, if we're wrong on that, maybe we're wrong on this. And so we went back in everything that we believed, and we just came forward from as far close to the Bible as we could get, and then study it forward. And so I think we're at a really good place. I'm excited about that. The leadership's excited about that. You know, they went through a lot of the same hurtful, harmful issues that we did, and I think they feel, you know, 25 years down the road, like, well, it is what it is, and this is where we are today, and it's a good place, and God's still working with us, and He's got a future for us. And that was the kind of what the conference was about. I'll read you just a little bit. This is the conference brochure, by the way, and there's one back on the table that you're free to flip through. On the inside the front cover here, it talks about the countries represented at the conference, and there were 29 different countries represented. Remember, our denomination used to be called Worldwide Church of God for a very good reason. And we still are worldwide. We've changed the denomination name, but that doesn't diminish the fact that we have members in I don't even know how many countries it is now, over 100 countries, I'm sure. Maybe many more than that, because this was 29 here that just managed to come to the U.S. And some countries, you think of like Australia and of course England, Canada, you think of those English-speaking countries, but worldwide, we had people here from Philippines, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, the Netherlands, Martinique, Guadeloupe. So just a lot of different kinds of people there. There was a lot of languages being spoken. If you stand around in the hall or wander around talking to people, this person be speaking French over here in this little group, and some Spanish over here, and maybe a little Portuguese back over here, and just all kinds of things going on. And you really felt international. I mean, you felt like people were here from all over the place. There were about 1,000 plus attendees there, and I'll show you a picture of the kind of the audience in just a little bit. So, and many people, for a lot of people, it was hard to get there. I mean, they had to get special visas. They had to save up money, money to fly from some of these far-flung countries that aren't very economically prosperous in the first place, and to be able to do everything it took to get off their jobs, if they had jobs, or to get enough money gathered and get there on a plane and get home and pay for their stay here. And I think some did get help from our denomination and so forth, and some people just send in special offerings just for that. So they did get some sponsorship, but in many cases they really had to put out a lot of effort and to get here. Dr. Koch wrote a welcome message, and I'll just read you a couple sentences out of it. He says, with this year's theme, and the theme was, "We are GCI." That was the theme. He said, with this year's theme, we want to focus on both the unity of GCI as a global denomination and celebrate our many distinct regional identities. So you can do both. You can be global, and you can still recognize that each region and country and ethnicity and language, has their own strengths too. And so we tried to focus on that. He says, I hope everyone will use this opportunity to connect with friends, old and new, share what's been happening in their local ministries, and come away with a clearer sense of who we truly are. And then Greg Williams, who's over it's called the Church Administration Department, and he and his crew kind of coordinate the conference, make all the details happen. He wrote a thank you note in here. And again, a little bit of it says, thank you for journeying to Orlando. We pray this week will be an amazing time to share in the love that continually flows from the Father, Son, and Spirit to us, and then to each other. We are aware that many of you are celebrating milestones in ministry, with a great number dedicating many decades of service in GCI congregations. We deeply appreciate your faithful service and celebrate these achievements with you. We pray for a renewed focus and energy as you return home to participate in what GCI is doing in your local communities. So I thought that was a nice touch to set the tone for the theme. I made a few notes here, but in just a second I'll show you some pictures, and then I'll just probably talk at random for the next hour and a half about those. It's always hard when you show pictures to not do that, but we learned, and we'll see some statistics on this later, that our denomination is not a large denomination as far as numbers of people, even around the world. It's and there's some figures, like I say, I'll show you, but we have an amazing reach. Some of that's because of our history, our media influence we used to have. There's magazines still being published in Holland and France and Australia, places like that, where people just in our small churches over there are still publishing magazines, about the gospel and so forth. And they will go out to tens of thousands of people, or on subscriber lists of some of these things. And this is out of a church of just a small number of folks, and in many different languages, many different countries. So it's pretty amazing what God can do with just even a handful of people to reach out with the gospel. So we show up at the conference, and the pastors and anyone else was invited too, but the pastors were kind of strongly encouraged to be there a day early, and we had some teachings by Dr. Detto. Dr. Detto is one of our kind of lead theologians, I guess you'd say, and he had some sessions just on doctrine. And you might sit there and go, oh, doctrine, yeesh, who cares, But and especially in our modern day, our postmodern mentality is, well, I don't need doctrine. I don't need anything that tells me, what the Bible says. I'll figure it out for myself. Just give me a Bible and I'll just read through it and I'll come up with what it means. But we find out that doesn't work real well. People get, the Bible means something. It doesn't mean 40,000 different things. And if everybody does it individually, we come up with 40,000 different ideas. Sometimes it's not very effective. There is some latitude within the Bible, but there are some orthodox teachings. There are some things that tell us who God is and what He's doing and our place in that. And we need to be on the same page on those things, those core values and so forth. So I believe doctrine matters. I think that the church, the whole church, not just our denomination, the whole church needs to be on a united front on a lot of these issues. And when we're not, we come across to society as infighting and arguing and can't figure out what we believe, and somebody's way off over here and somebody's way off over here, and people sit around and go, you can't be both of those, and be representing God. So I think it's critical that we do teach things that are proper and biblical and have strong foundations, and being taught what those things are is good. Let's see. So I did that. Let me run over here and show some photos, tell a few more stories. If I can make that work. I'm going back here and I'm just going to turn one of these switches off. Maybe I'll turn them both off. Let's see if I can. Oh yeah. We can still see. Thank you. Now, if I can just find the photos, I'll be doing good, won't I? They're down here somewhere. That's PowerPoint. Maybe here, maybe here. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay. That is driving up to our hotel. Well, we're actually, Sue came back later and took this picture, but that's the view you would have had driving up to our hotel. And nice little pond out there. It's a Hilton hotel. It was nice. And this is a view from the hotel. Is this a view from our room?
Yes.
Yeah, this was a view from our room. So we're looking kind of down the main entryway into the hotel at some of the other surrounding buildings there. We are right across the street from not Disneyland, but from a Disney area. And so you see mice all over the town like this. And that was good because people had brought their young kids and stuff. They were close to some of the fun activities. And we did have some danger and warnings that were placed about the grounds too. It wasn't all fun and games. It was like watching out for alligators and snakes. It's Florida for goodness sakes. This was a view of our pool at the hotel, and Sue likes pools, and when she wasn't in the meetings, she was, there she is. That's where you found her some of the time, right there. This was our group. I think the first day or so, you might notice a couple people with jackets and parkas on. For some reason, the air conditioning in that room that first day, I think they'd been trying to chill some meat down or something. It was freezing in there, but it got better. But the good group, we had older folks. Our church is an older church in the U.S., but there were a lot of teens there as well, and they were off in special sessions, and there were kids, and some of the people were taking care of the kids during the day, and they were taking field trips and doing fun stuff. And so it was a real family-oriented time. I was talking about the different languages and interpreters. Back in one corner, they were interpreting into Spanish. Another corner, they were interpreting into French. And up front, they were interpreting for the deaf. And there's a church, one of our churches up in Staten Island, New York, that specifically, it's a church for deaf people. And several of their members made the effort to come down. This is one of their interpreters, but there were other deaf people there, of course, from other congregations as well. And so I always find it amazing to watch these people and how they portray what's being said and sung, and it's just amazing. Of course, Mom does some of that as well too. Here was our worship team on stage. They were out of Miami, Florida, the Taylors, Charles and Keisha Taylor, pastors down there. They put together a wonderful group, probably the best music I've ever enjoyed at a conference, and some I haven't enjoyed at all. But I really, and they got a lot of positive comments. They made great efforts. They sang a big mix of songs, very contemporary songs, classic hymns of the faith, some songs out of our old songbook, our old WCG songbook, stuff for the kids. So it was really, really good. Here was the kids choir actually one day doing their thing. And it's been, I don't remember the last time I saw like a kids choir. And we also had a regular choir that did a couple of numbers, an adult choir. And we haven't had that for many years and years, so that was kind of cool. Of course, if you're at a conference, you have to eat. So I have to show some of the eating. And here we are sitting around at one of the meals, just to give you a flavor of what that's like. Oh, a flavor, little pun there. Of course, that's Dr. Koch in the middle of Tammy, his wife, on the right, and that's Greg Williams on the left. And Greg presented to the Koches this very, very nice plaque, which commemorates, it's Mr. DeKoch Sr.'s pictures on the right, Dr. DeKoch, his pictures on the left, and in between there's a very nice message talking about his dad and the faithfulness there through the changes of the church, and how the baton was passed to the son and so forth. That was nice. We had some talks by these are some of our young pastoral trainees, I guess you'd say, pastoral residents, I think they call them. And they're amazing people. They've stayed with our denomination. Some have rejoined our denomination. Some are new to our denomination. And these are people who are coming along to be pastors of our churches as some of our older people retire and move on. I'll just mention the fellow in the middle there, since you're looking at his picture. That's Dwight Judah, black fellow with long black curls, braids. He's actually going to be the senior pastor of our Sacramento, California church, I think at the end of this year. Mike Swaggerty, some of you may remember him, very, very long-term pastor. In fact, I think he was celebrating 50 years in the pastorate this year. And he's retiring finally. And of all things, this young whippersnapper guy is going to take his place. So here, a church that's been used to the same pastor for many, many years, very seasoned, older pastor. They are welcoming with open arms this new young guy that's quite different. Now, he did grow up in that church, but he says he was a minority, as far as his race. He's young. That's a minority. He said, but they love me. They love me, and they're letting me be their pastor. So that's the way that's working. Forgot. Okay. Oh yeah, here's one of the nights they had kind of a band that played, and then they had various things going on at different times during that program. This fellow gets up with these art brushes, and they start playing a song, and he starts blobbing ink around on the page. And he's got a brush in each hand, different colors in his palette down there, and he's painting really, really fast to the music. And I want you to watch this painting. I got like 3 or 4 pictures here. So that's the way he starts out. And then see a little farther, the song's still going. He's got this painted. A little farther along, I'm going, what in the world? And then he finishes and turns the canvas upside down from what he had been painting. So he was painting this picture upside down, and we never knew what it was until he flipped it around and turned it over. So that was pretty fun. There were various stations after the concert was over. You could go around the hall, and there were hundreds of people that were at that did this. They had 6 or 7 different stations set up, and they were very contemplative, meditative kind of stations. And young, very young, and old, and all in between. And I may show some of the stations later in a sermon, but one of them was a prayer station. And what you did is you wrote down your prayer needs on these little sticky notes, and you stuck them to one side of this board. And then people would come along and pull a sticky note off and would go over just somewhere in the hall and would pray about that. And then they'd come back and stick it on this side. This says lifted. I forget what the other side was titled, but they went from kind of being your prayer burden on one side to being lifted because someone had prayed about them and put them on this side. And we saw little 6-8-year-old kids participating in this. It was kind of cool. There were several of the regional directors. Well, let me back up. First, there's 6 regions in the United States, and the fellows that head up each of those regions, the regional pastors they gave talks about what was going on in the U.S. And I figured maybe you're a little more familiar with that, so I wasn't going to cover too much of that. But these were some of the international fellows, and I'll go back here in just a minute and tell you what they said, but let me just flip on through their pictures. This is Eugene Guzan from the Philippines. And these pictures I was taking from out in the audience with my camera, so they're a little fuzzy, but that's who he is. Rod Matthews from South Asia and regions of the world over there in that region. These are the Biswases, John and Naomi Biswas. They sometimes we've donated to the Bengali Evangelistic Association. Maybe you remember that, the GOAT program, the nursing program. So they work into Bangladesh. They live here in the U.S., but they're obviously from there, and that's where they do their ministry work. This is Hector Barrero from South and Central America. It's his area. And then just jumping through, these are just friends that I met, because part of this whole thing was a reconnection, like he said, of old and new friends. And these were some friends from Sue and I knew back in our Ambassador College days, so that goes back 40 years and better. Okay, I tried the selfie thing, so you kind of get the nose, look like you're looking up our nose, but Carl Reinigold, fellow that I've known for many years. He's a pastor of the St. Louis area. There's Dan Rogers and his wife. They were there. He's retired now. Maybe that's why he's smiling. I don't know. This is Ross Judson. Many of you know him from music programs he's done here. These are some new friends I met. The Phillips on the left, the Zacharias on the right. That's Donna Patillo from the Tyler Church in the middle. They're from India. She knew them from a trip she had taken over there and was introducing me to them. You remember these folks? Last name Johnson. Ann and Al Johnson. That was when Walter Johnson died and Mr. Orban was involved in his funeral. Then the next morning they came here to church, and they were really excited to see us. They remembered so much the way we treated them that morning, that Sunday they came over here, and we were set up in a circle, I remember, and they got to share some things. And one of their daughters was with them, and some other family, and it was just a good day. And then we had snacks afterwards, and they got to visit, and they just remembered every aspect of that. So what you guys do with visitors is pretty amazing. Another selfie, that's David Orth from down in San Antonio. You guys know him. The Deptulas from down in Nacogdoches, and that's Kathy Houston. She's a pastor of one of our churches up in Arkansas. And there's Tom Pickett from over in the Fort Worth area. His wife had died not too long ago, maybe 2 years ago, something like that, and this is his new wife. They met at the gym. So there you go. These, at the end of this table is the Mananangs. They're from the Philippines originally. They live here in the U.S. now, and that was, I performed their wedding like the 2 weeks or so, a month after I got down to Austin to pastor. It was, and so they have kept in touch over the years, and they took us out to dinner this night at this restaurant. So these are some folks that are on the mission trip, have been on the mission trip up. They're from Alaska, and they come down and do the Crossing Borders trip. So just wanted you to see some folk. Oh, here we are, kind of goofing around, or goofying around, or whatever. So your pastor is not studying seriously all the time that we're out there. Okay, let me come back to that in a minute. Okay, I was going to flip through. I took a bunch of notes in this book, and I wanted to just go over a few things with you that were covered there at the conference. And mainly right now, just give you a touch of flavor of some of these different regions of the world, if I can. Gordon Green spoke to us out of South Africa. And here, I'll just run through these. There's 24 congregations down there. They're all bivocational pastors, which means they have no hired pastors. Very financially tough, he says, in that part of the world. Their challenge is trying to find new leaders to take over from the older pastors. They do have an active SEP program, a youth camp program down there. And he said many that attend are actually orphans. And they attend GCI without their parents even in some cases. They have a very active ministerial training program, which they put on video, and they can send that out to some of the areas where travel is difficult and people can do that. So just different ways that in different parts of the world, our ministers and leaders are handling how to help preach the gospel and grow the church. Kalangula Kaomi, he's from the northern part, not South Africa part, but the rest of Africa. He heads up most of that. He says there's 3,600 members in 17 countries. One of the countries, Benin, he says is a worldwide head of voodoo, so they have to, they're dealing with different issues that we deal with over here. And there's over 1,000 languages and dialects in Africa, so that gets interesting. John McLean out of Australia was saying that post-Christian to an anti-Christian, and we hear that even in America sometimes. You can see that in some of the lawsuits going on and things, that the attitude down there is very, very hard. There's a term, several of the region directors use the word hard just to reach into certain areas with Christianity. Interestingly, as Australia has moved away from kind of the Christian attitude, they now boast the highest rate of teen suicide in the world out of Australia. Wonder if those are related at all. One of their little churches, he said, and it was a little church, a little local church there in a town. They used to have this community festival, and it had kind of languished and was about to die, and they asked one of our little churches to coordinate it and head it up because the pastor had gotten involved in various areas of the community. And so they thought, well, there's really not much going on here, but we'll try. And the first year they did it, they said they had 100 people show up. They thought, well, that's not bad, 100 people show up. Now they've been doing it 4 or 5 years, and the last year they did it, they had 10,000 people show up to the conference. So just a way that they can outreach and serve in the community. The Solomon Islands, John McLean heads that up out of Australia as well. He says it's the highest rate of domestic violence in the world. So, the things they have to fight, some of these places. Eugene Guzan, I showed you his picture out of the Philippines. They send a lot of missionaries, Filipino missionaries, to the Middle East, to Japan, to China, to Thailand, places like that. Sometimes they go over as what's called domestic workers, housekeepers and nannies and so forth. Sometimes the Philippines are very educated people, very technologically savvy. Sometimes they're brought into these countries just because of their job skills in a very technical way. So wherever they go, they start churches, they reach out to the people. And the Filipinos generally are very open, very friendly, and are accepted in many, many countries. In the Philippines, there's 4,600 members, about 86 churches, 34 Bible studies going on. They have a very active youth camp program. In their churches overall, in 2016, they had 150 new baptisms and 6 new churches start up. Rod Matthews then spoke to us about South Asia and the South Pacific, which includes a wide range of the world. 2 billion people in 15 different countries is what he heads up. And so that's a lot going on in his neck of the woods, I'm sure. The Biswases, who go off to Bangladesh. Bangladesh is half the size of the state of California. It has a population of half the United States. So they're very tight, I guess you would say, crammed in there. 175 million people in that country. They actually have, at their different Bible studies and church services, they have about 2,500 attendees, which is amazing in the country. Bangladesh is 92% Islamic, 7% Hindu. If you add that up, that's 99%, so it's well less than 1% of people are available or involved in Christianity, and many of those aren't involved in anything. So it's a very small percentage of the population. But they go over there faithfully a couple times a year, and they have a nursing program going on. They provide goats for people, so again, some of us have donated to that in the past. They do sewing, train people to be seamstresses. They have a new building over there, which is like they get a lot of tsunamis and stuff, so that new building serves as a place where the community can come in and be protected from that, because it's a strong place, a strong building. So that's what they do over there as a church. They've given away about 10,000 goats over the years, by the way, so there you go. Hector Barrero talked about South and Central America. There's 11 congregations in 8 countries. Not a lot of people, about 600 people. But they're also reaching out, and they're being very successful with Vacation Bible School programs and other youth-oriented programs. They have some doctrinal classes that even people from other churches are taking, very interested in, and some leadership training that people from other churches are using and participating in. So then Iberticus, he spoke about the Spanish congregations in the U.S. and in Mexico. We actually have Spanish-speaking congregations in the United States. Sometimes you'll drive past a church and you'll see out on the sign, Spanish services here on Saturday night or something, because First Baptist Church or something may let a Spanish-speaking church meet in their church. Well, in the U.S., we actually have GCI Spanish-speaking churches. That's what they are. And there's 8 of those in the U.S. They have about 400 plus members. And in those churches, they've had 56 baptisms in the last 3 years. And in Mexico, there's 13 congregations with about 250 members. And they restarted their youth camp, young adult camp concept about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's really taken off well in Mexico. So I thought, well, there's a couple more here. Gary Moore gave us a report from Canada, and Canada, again, post-Christian, kind of a struggle to interest people in Christianity. I think in the more affluent countries, that's just kind of it's the way the scale kind of works. Seems like the less affluent the country is, the more open they are to Christianity, and then as we gain our affluence and comfort and economic security, we don't really need God anymore. We got everything, thanks a lot, and people are less interested. Shouldn't work that way, but that seems to be the way it works. Charles Fleming talked about the Caribbean, and talked about one of our members down there who's a teacher at a school, and the school, because of just kind of her witness as a Christian, And they have a lot of the same laws we do. You can't just openly teach Christianity in school. But they asked this teacher to have an assembly. They called it an assembly with the kids that were dropped off for school in the mornings, because the buses and the parents would bring them by. It'd be a while till school actually start, so they would have this assembly the kids could go to. Well, the assembly was Bible stories and craft activities and everything biblically based, and actually teaching from the Bible in the assembly, not in the school, not once the school bell rang. And they've got like 200 kids now showing up for the assembly classes in the morning. So pretty cool. James Henderson was talking about England, Great Britain, so forth, and he said the SEP camp, which is our youth camp in Scotland, has now been going for 50 years. I know Scott's been to that, and maybe some of you know some other people who've been over there. So that's kind of cool. All right, so that's kind of it for the international areas. The young adults in our denomination, they've begun having, well, I say young adults in the kind of 20s up to early 30s. They have these events called Ignite, and because there are kind of a number of people in that age range, we're trying to keep them around in our denomination, and hopefully they'll carry on through and have their families and stay in, so forth. And we have our intern program, we have our pastoral resident program, so all that's very active and going on. Let me close by showing you a few things that Dr. DeKoch told us about. If I can get this other thing to pop up right here, and then we'll do that. All right. He was nice enough to send me his slideshow that he used. I asked him after the conference, and that's how these are so neat. I don't know how to do these, but he did them, and I just borrowed them from him. These are our numbers, in 1987, for instance. The way you interpret this is the members in our denomination were 140,000. We had about a 240,000 attendance. So that's the blue bars members, the orange shows non-members who also attended. And then 10 years later, in 97, which was about 2 years after the changes, as we call them, the changes hit, you can see our membership and attendance drop, way down, about a third of attendance, and about a third members is all we had left, and attendance dropped. And then in 2007, it was still dropping as far as members. People were dying. Again, an older church, that's what happens. But you'll see in 2017, it's begun to kind of turn the other way a little bit. We've gained a few thousand members, and attendance has actually begun to go up a little bit. Some of that's in the U.S., some of that's worldwide. And really, a lot of growth is happening in other areas. Some in the U.S. We have some new churches in the U.S. and baptisms, but especially in some other countries around the world. So that was interesting. And here it is by regions. This is numbers of members of GCI by region. The big blue on the right-hand side, that lightish blue, big, that's Africa. And then the next pie below that, kind of the dark kind of bronze color, is Australia and Asia, and then you can just follow it around. The gray is the Caribbean and Latin America. The kind of gold color is Canada. The Philippines and Asia are the other blue color, the United Kingdom and Europe. You can see how small that is. Isn't that amazing? That green. Again, they're very post-Christian in England and Europe, and America's heading that direction. And then the USA is the 10,620 members. So that's the total. Okay, now nobody, unless you were at the conference, you don't know this yet. You haven't seen these pictures yet. You guys are getting a preview. This is our new home office building out in North Carolina. And he told a story about how they came across it. It was really kind of a God thing, how they located this building. They were actually looking at another building But they ended up getting this building, which turned out to be way better, for about $1 million less than the other building was gonna cost. We've already bought this building, we own it, and they're preparing it and getting ready for us to move out there. I think in April of next year, they plan to make the actual transition. Of course, they'll be moving stuff piecemeal as they can between now and then. But it comes fully outfitted. It was a training building for, like Secret Service or something like that. So it comes with a lot of high class audiovisual stuff and training stuff, so we can bring pastors in here and have conferences, small conferences and training sessions. So that's what it looks like from the outside. And here's just some shots looking inside the building. You can just imagine these CIA secret agent types sitting around here, these highfalutin meetings, a lot of glass, a lot of looking outside. Little rooms, big rooms. It's not a big building. We're not going to have that many staff that actually will move. We don't have that many staff now. We're going to have a few less after the move. Some will retire. Some are getting close to retirement age. Some will move out from California to out there, and some will kind of work from home a little more, which you can do more and more these days. But so nice looking buildings, not very old. It's been well kept up, and all the furniture, everything you see here stays with the building. So that's much less stuff that we'll actually have to move and take with us. We're going to sell our building in California. It's already up for sale. There's already three interested buyers, but nobody's come through yet with the money. But we'll actually be able to sell it for more than we paid for it. California market's decent right now, and should come out, a few $1 million ahead, which is good because our overall donation levels have been dropping the last couple of decades as well. So be kind of a nice little boost in the arm to do that. And then I think, and then they're redoing the website as well. If any of you get on the GCI website in the next couple of months, they hope to have that redone. Real quickly here, this is a Wordle. Anybody ever heard of a Wordle? Yeah, some of you heard of Wordles. What you do is you have people. This is an unconditioned Wordle, which what this means is someone asked members of GCI, how would you come up with a word that you would use to describe GCI? And they had several hundred people turn in words. And then what they do is they put all these words on this page, and the bigger the word, the higher number of people use that word as the description. So out of these words that people turned in, you can see accepting and courageous, faithful, friendly, diverse, a little smaller, loving, genuine, grounded. So that's the words people use to describe. There's a conditioned Wordle where you give the people a list of words to choose from. They just don't come up with them on their own. And so we gave people a list of words, and many of them overlap the same, but friendly and loving, faithful, caring, family. So it was good. It was good to see that, to see what people think of GCI. All right, I think that's all of that. I can't believe I got through all of that. Felt like I was rushing, but I didn't want to bore you, but I wanted you to know that those things were going on out there. Joe DeKoch, Dr. DeKoch, he does have his doctorate. He's going to retire at the end of next year.